What if you chose this life? Not the good parts only, all of it. The family you were born into, the body you woke up in, the heartbreaks, the losses, the years that felt too heavy to carry. What if, before you took your first breath, some part of you looked at this exact life, with all its pain and all its beauty, and said yes? It sounds impossible, maybe even uncomfortable. Because if it's true, it means your hardest moments were not random accidents. It means they were, in some way, chosen for thousands of years, across cultures that never spoke to each other, across religions that disagree on almost everything else. One idea keeps appearing again and again, the idea that before we are born, the soul makes an agreement, a contract. Today, we are going to explore that idea, not to convince you it is true, but to show you how deep this belief runs in human history, what it might mean for the life you are living right now, and why understanding it, even just considering it, can change the way you carry your pain. This is the life contract. Right now, take a moment and think about your life. Think about the family you were born into. Maybe it was warm and loving. Maybe it was difficult, even painful. Think about the body you were given. Maybe it has served you well. Maybe it has given you struggles you never asked for. Think about the timing of your birth, the country, the year, the culture, the language that became your first language before you ever had a choice in the matter. None of us remember choosing any of this. We simply woke up inside a life that was already in motion, but across nearly every major spiritual and philosophical tradition in human history, there is a quiet, persistent teaching that suggests something different. That before you arrived here, some part of you, call it the soul, the higher self, the spirit, was not a blank passenger being thrown into existence at random. Instead, many traditions teach that the soul participates, that it chooses or agrees to certain conditions, a family, a set of challenges, a path. This is sometimes called a soul contract, sometimes a soul agreement, sometimes a life plan. Today, we are going to walk through this idea carefully. We'll look at where it comes from. We'll look at what different traditions say about it, from ancient Greek philosophy to Jewish mysticism, to Hindu and Buddhist teachings, to Christian mystical thought. We'll look at what it might mean if it's true, and we'll look at how, even as a symbol or a way of thinking, it can change the way you relate to your own life. This is not about telling you what to believe. It's about opening a door that many wise teachers in many centuries have walked through before you. Let's begin. Almost everyone, at some point in their life, asks the same question in a moment of pain. Why is this happening to me? It might be after a loss, after a diagnosis, after a betrayal, after watching someone you love suffer for reasons that make no sense. This question is one of the oldest questions in human history. It sits underneath religion, philosophy, and psychology alike. Why do bad things happen to people who don't seem to deserve them? Why does one person face hardship after hardship, while another seems to move through life with ease? Most answers to this question fall into a few categories. Some say it is chance, random. The universe has no plan, and things simply happen the way physics and probability allow. Some say it is punishment, that suffering is a consequence for wrongdoing, whether in this life or in traditions that believe in reincarnation in a previous one. And some say something quieter, and in many ways more difficult to sit with. They say that some suffering is chosen, not by your everyday conscious mind, the one reading these words right now, but by a deeper part of you, a part that existed before this life began, and that selected this particular path on purpose, for reasons your current self cannot remember. This is the beginning of the life contract idea. It doesn't try to explain away suffering. It doesn't say pain isn't real or doesn't hurt. Instead, it offers a reframe, that even difficulty might be meaningful, not random, not senseless, chosen by you. for reasons that may only become clear with time, or perhaps never fully in this life at all. Think of it like a student who enrolls in a difficult course. No one forces them to take it. They chose it, knowing it would be hard, because they wanted the growth that came with it. From the outside, someone watching them struggle through late nights and difficult exams might think, "Why would you put yourself through that?" But the student knows something the observer doesn't. They know why they're doing it. They know what they're becoming through the difficulty. The life contract asks us to consider, what if life works the same way? What if the soul, before birth, is not a victim of circumstance, but a student who selected the course? One of the earliest and most detailed descriptions of a soul choosing its life before birth comes from ancient Greece, specifically from the philosopher Plato, writing around 2,400 years ago, in his work known as The Republic. Plato tells a story referred to today as the Myth of Er. Er was a soldier who, according to the story, died in battle, but his soul left his body and witnessed the realm between lives before returning to tell others what he saw. In this account, souls are gathered together after death and are shown a great variety of lives they could live next. Different destinies, different circumstances, different challenges, and then each soul is given the responsibility of choosing which life to enter. According to Plato's account, souls are told, "The blame is his who chooses. God is blameless." In other words, whatever life you choose and whatever comes from it, the responsibility rests with the soul that made the choice, not with some outside force. This is a remarkable idea for its time. It suggests that the soul is not simply thrown into a life. It participates. It selects. Some souls in the story, according to this myth, choose lives of great power, only to discover that power came bundled with strings they hadn't anticipated. Others choose modest, simple lives and find, to their surprise, a kind of peace they hadn't expected. The lesson embedded in the story is that wisdom is needed even in choosing, because a soul that chooses carelessly may end up with a difficult path it didn't fully understand when it was choosing. After choosing, according to the myth, souls drink from a river that causes forgetting, so that they arrive in their new life having lost all memory of the choice they made. This detail matters. It explains, within the framework of the myth, why none of us remember agreeing to anything. Not because there was no agreement, but because forgetting is part of the design. You don't need to accept this story as literal history to notice something important. Over 2,000 years ago, a philosopher was already exploring the idea that our lives are not simply imposed on us, that some deeper part of us plays a role in shaping the path we walk, and that forgetting that choice is part of what makes life feel the way it does. Uncertain, disorienting, and in need of rediscovery. Jewish mystical tradition, particularly within Kabbalah, offers its own detailed teaching on this subject. In Kabbalistic thought, the soul is understood to exist before the body. It is not created at the moment of birth, but rather descends into the physical world from a higher, spiritual realm. According to some Kabbalistic teachings, before a soul enters a body, it stands before a divine tribunal and is shown the entirety of the life it is about to live. The people it will meet, the struggles it will face, the choices it will need to make. And, according to this teaching, the soul is asked whether it agrees to undertake this life. Some texts describe an angel, sometimes called Layla, who accompanies the soul during this process, teaching it the wisdom of the Torah while it is still in the spiritual realm, and then, just before birth, touching the baby above the lip, causing the soul to forget everything it once knew. This is sometimes offered as a symbolic explanation for the small groove above your upper lip, found on every human being. In this tradition, the soul's descent into a body is not a punishment or an accident. It is a purposeful journey, The soul enters the physical world specifically because there are certain kinds of growth, certain kinds of goodness, patience, and moral choice that can only be developed through the difficulty and limitation of physical existence. A soul in a purely spiritual state, according to this view, cannot struggle, cannot choose kindness in the face of unkindness, cannot practice patience in the face of hardship. Those qualities require a body, a world, and time. The physical world, difficult as it is, becomes the very classroom the soul needs. This connects closely to the life contract idea. The soul is not a passive victim placed into circumstance. It agrees, in some mystical sense, to a specific set of conditions, because those conditions offer exactly the kind of growth it seeks. If we travel further east, to the traditions of Hinduism and Buddhism, we find a related but distinct framework: karma and reincarnation. In Hindu philosophy, the soul, or Atman, does not experience only one life. It passes through many lifetimes, shaped by karma, the accumulated consequences of past actions and choices. The conditions of a new life, the family, the body, the circumstances, are understood, in many interpretations, to be connected to karma carried forward from previous lives. This isn't usually described using the language of a contract in the Western legal sense. It's closer to cause and effect operating across lifetimes. But there is still a sense of continuity and participation. The soul is not randomly dropped into circumstance. Its current situation is shaped by a long chain of choices it made across many lifetimes. Choices that were, ultimately, its own. Buddhism, which emerged from the same region and shares some concepts with Hinduism, teaches something more subtle. Buddhism generally does not describe a fixed, permanent soul moving from life to life in the way Hinduism does. Instead, it describes a stream of consciousness, shaped by karma, that continues in a new form after death. Much like a flame passed from one candle to another. The new flame is connected to the old one, shaped by it, but is not exactly identical to it. Even with this more nuanced view, the core idea remains. The conditions of this life are not meaningless accidents. They are deeply, intricately connected to a much longer story than we can currently see. Many practitioners within these traditions use this understanding not to feel trapped by fate, but to feel a sense of responsibility and hope. If karma shapes future lives, then the choices made now, including how one responds to hardship, genuinely matter. The story is not finished. It continues to be written. Within early Christian mystical thought, particularly among groups often referred to as Gnostics, we find another version of this idea, distinct from mainstream Orthodox Christian teaching, which generally does not affirm pre-birth soul agreements in this form. Gnostic texts, some of which were only rediscovered in the 20th century, often describe the soul as originating from a divine, spiritual source, and then descending into the material world. Sometimes described as a kind of forgetting, a fall from a higher state of awareness into the limitations of the body and the physical world. In this framework, the material world itself is often treated with more suspicion than in Kabbalah. Some Gnostic texts describe physical existence as a kind of exile, or even a trap that the soul must awaken from and eventually transcend, rather than a classroom chosen freely for growth. Even so, the germ of the idea persists. Consciousness precedes the body. Something in us exists before this particular life, and something in us continues afterward. Within later Christian mysticism, writers like Meister Eckhart in the medieval period, there is also frequent reflection on the soul's origin in the divine, its temporary residence in the body, and its eventual return to its source. While mainstream Christian doctrine does not typically teach that souls choose their earthly circumstances before birth, mystics across traditions have long wrestled with the same underlying question. Why are we here? In these bodies, in this specific set of circumstances, And what is the relationship between the eternal part of us and this temporary physical chapter? In more recent decades, the language of the soul contract has become common within modern spiritual and metaphysical communities, often blending ideas from many of the traditions we've already discussed. In this modern framing, a soul contract is often described as an agreement made in a space between lives, sometimes called the in-between, sometimes described using other names, where the soul, together with other souls it is connected to, plans out key aspects of the next incarnation. According to this modern framework, the soul may choose the general shape of key relationships, including, in this view, agreeing with other souls to play certain roles for each other, such as a parent, a friend, or even someone who will cause great pain. Because that pain will teach a lesson neither soul could learn any other way. Certain challenges, such as an illness, a loss, or a limitation, chosen specifically because they create conditions for growth that could not happen otherwise. Certain gifts and talents chosen to be used in service of others, or to fulfill a particular purpose. It's worth being honest here. This modern framing is not something that can be historically verified. It draws heavily on older traditions like the ones we've already explored, but it's typically presented as personal spiritual insight rather than as documented history or a claim of scientific fact. Many people find deep comfort and meaning in it. Others find it difficult to accept, particularly when applied to severe suffering, such as the pain of losing a child or profound trauma. It's worth sitting with that discomfort honestly, rather than rushing past it. Regardless of where you personally land on whether this is literally true, it's worth noticing what almost every version of the idea, ancient and modern, has in common. Look back across everything we've covered. Plato's Myth of Er, Kabbalistic teachings on the soul's descent, Hindu and Buddhist teachings on karma across lifetimes, Gnostic reflections on the soul's origin, modern soul contract teachings. They come from different centuries, different continents, different religious frameworks that, in many other areas, strongly disagree with one another. And yet, in this one particular area, they share a strikingly similar shape. First, the soul, self, or consciousness existed in some form before this current life. Second, the conditions of this life are not entirely random. They are connected, through choice, karma, or divine planning, to something beyond ordinary memory. Third, forgetting is part of the design. We are not meant to remember the details clearly while we're living through them. The forgetting itself seems to serve a purpose. Perhaps so that we experience life fully, rather than simply going through the motions of a plan we already know the ending to. Fourth, the purpose of the difficult parts of life is growth, not punishment. When so many unrelated traditions, separated by oceans and centuries, arrive at a similar shape of an idea, it's worth pausing on that. It doesn't prove the idea is literally, historically true, but it does suggest that this is one of the deepest, most recurring intuitions in human history, the sense that our lives have a hidden architecture, and that we are, in some way, the authors of it, even if we can't remember writing the story. So what do we do with this? You don't have to decide right now whether you literally signed a contract before you were born. That's not really the point of this lesson. The deeper value of this idea is in how it changes the way you carry your life. Consider two people who each go through the exact same hardship. Say, the loss of a job, or a painful breakup, or a health struggle. One person carries this as pure misfortune, a senseless, meaningless event that happened to them. They ask, "Why me?" and find no answer, because in their framework, there isn't one. The suffering simply sits there, heavy and pointless. The other person, holding the life contract idea lightly, not as dogma, but as a possibility, asks a different question. Not "Why is this happening to me?" but "What is this here to teach me?" They don't deny the pain. They don't pretend it doesn't hurt, but they hold space for the idea that even this chapter might have a purpose they can't yet see. This shift doesn't erase suffering, but it changes its texture. It turns a senseless wound into a difficult chapter of a longer story. One that, according to nearly every tradition we've explored today, you may have agreed to walk, for reasons your forgetting self cannot currently access. Many spiritual teachers describe this shift as one of the most powerful tools for resilience, not denial, not toxic positivity, but a willingness to ask, honestly and humbly, what if there is meaning here that I simply can't see yet? If this idea speaks to you, here is a simple practice many traditions suggest, adapted into something you can try today. Find a quiet place. Sit comfortably. Take a few slow breaths. Bring to mind one difficult chapter of your life, something painful, something that never fully made sense to you. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" gently ask a different question. What did this teach me that I could not have learned any other way? You don't need an immediate answer. Let the question sit. Sometimes the answer arrives slowly, over months or years, not in a single sitting. You might also try journaling this reflection, writing down the hardship, and then writing down, honestly, anything, however small, that it taught you. Patience, compassion, strength. The ability to recognize real love because you had known its absence. The willingness to ask for help, whatever comes. This practice doesn't require you to believe in a literal soul contract. It simply asks you to consider your life as something with a hidden architecture worth investigating, rather than a random sequence of events with no thread connecting them. Before we close, it's important to say clearly, this is not a teaching meant to minimize real suffering, or to suggest that people who face terrible hardship somehow deserved it, or should simply accept injustice without seeking change or healing. The life contract idea, across every tradition we've discussed, was never meant to be used that way. It was never meant to be said to someone else as an explanation for their pain. It's something each person may choose to explore for themselves, in their own time, about their own life, not a framework to impose on others. If someone you love is grieving or suffering, this is rarely the moment to tell them, "You chose this," or "Everything happens for a reason." That can feel dismissive, even cruel, in the wrong moment. Wisdom here also means knowing when a teaching is helpful, and when it's better to simply sit with someone in their pain, without explanation. This idea is best held humbly, as a possibility, not a certainty, as a way of finding meaning in your own story, not a tool for judging someone else's. Today, we explored one of the oldest and most widespread ideas in human spiritual history. The possibility that before you were born, some part of you agreed to the conditions of this life. We saw this idea in Plato's Myth of Er, where souls choose their next life and then forget the choice. We saw it in Kabbalistic teachings, where the soul descends into the body on a purposeful mission. We saw it in Hindu and Buddhist teachings on karma across lifetimes. We saw echoes of it in Gnostic and Christian mystical thought. And we saw how it continues today in modern spiritual teaching, under the name of the soul contract. Across all these traditions, the same pattern appears: existence before birth, purposeful conditions, forgetting as part of the design, and growth as the goal of difficulty. Whether or not you accept this literally, it offers something valuable, a way of turning senseless pain into a chapter of a longer, more meaningful story. Before you go, sit with this question for a moment. If you had chosen this life, fully, knowingly, on purpose, what would that mean about the person you're becoming through it? You may never know for certain whether you signed a contract before you arrived here, but you are, without question, writing the next chapter right now. With the choices you make today, in our next lesson, We'll continue this journey by exploring what many traditions describe as the space between lives. The realm the soul is said to inhabit before it enters a new body, and what it might teach us about where we came from and where we may return. If today's lesson opened a door in your thinking, that next lesson will build directly on it. We are constructing this understanding one chapter at a time, and every lesson prepares you for the one that follows. If this way of looking at your life resonated with you, consider staying for the rest of this journey. Every lesson builds on the one before it, and there is much more ahead.